In fact, Don Rickles detested him more than anybody. Donald J. Rickles was born Rickles in Queens, New York. On May 8, 1926, York arose from modest origins to become among the most renowned 20th century actors and comedians. Growing up in the Heights area, Rickles in a Jewish household and acquired a keen wit and rapid speech at a young age, characteristics that will subsequently characterize his. Max Rickles, his father, was Anne. His mother was an insurance agent and housewife who lavished him with affection and acknowledged his gift for humor even as a kid. Following graduation from high school, Rickles briefly went to the Academy of Dramatic Arts in America with the primary goal of pursuing a serious acting profession. His goal was to work as a theatrical performer on Broadway or in Hollywood, but his inherently frantic wit and keen observing abilities guided him gradually in a different direction path, the stand-up comedy industry. After serving in the United States Navy during the Second World War, he was an enlisted member of the USS Serene, and the Rickles went back to his home in the Pacific Theater. With a fresh sense of direction, similar to among his generation's veterans, initially found it difficult to get his footing. However, his innate charisma and attractiveness attracted in the direction of amusement. By the early he started going to nightclubs in the 1950s, first as a struggling performer, while would employ humor as a kind of filler between lines. When he became aware viewers reacted more favorably to his brief insults rather than his sincere efforts to. Rickles was all humor and no drama. This choice would alter his life forever, and make a lasting impression on the entertainment industry. Rickles quickly established an own niche within the comedy industry. In contrast to most contemporary stand-up comedians who depending on delivering well-structured jokes or funny tales, Rickles established an insult humor, a completely different strategy. He would enter the stage and right away start making fun of the participants in the audience, irrespective of their background, occupation, or social standing. His keen Hollywood's tongue spared no one, celebs to regular admirers. Additionally, he became known as the individual who may roast someone and yet win their heart. For it, Mr. Warmth, as he was known, was an irony that captures the truth with a Although his remarks were scathing, they were consistently provided in a friendly and lean warmth and comedy. An important turning point in Rickles' early Frank Sinatra's career began when one of the world's biggest stars came tune of his Miami concerts. Rather than showing respect for Sinatra, as most, Rickles openly stated that performers would made fun of him when he was on stage. Regarding his influence and authority, instead than offending anyone, Sinatra was captivated and turned into one of Rickles' backers, presenting him to the well-known people and solidifying his position among the Hollywood elite. This friendship improved not just Rickles' profession, but also demonstrated his bravery and self-assurance, attributes that made him comedy as appealing. Rickles quickly became a fixture on the Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show and projects such as the Dean Martin roasts of celebrities, where his lightning-quick insults turned to become the focal point of the evening. While stand-up comedy wastes cornerstone of his profession, Rickles was a versatile actor as well. He showed up in movies like Run Deep, Run Silent, 1958, with Burt and Clark Gable Lancaster, and subsequently in comedies such as Kelly's Heroes, 1970, starring Clint Eastwood. His capacity to adjust to both positions that are both humorous and serious showed off his versatility as a performer. He starred in his own movie in the 1970s, Sharky, a sitcom on television, where his biting comments and caustic humor were retransformed into a U.S. Navy chief petty officer. Additionally, he turned into a regular appearance on talk shows, adored because of his unpredictable nature and capacity to cause even the most somber host to lose a tinto giggling. Rickles' career took a turn for the better throughout the 1990s and 2000s, partly because after his function as Mr. Potato's voice head in the groundbreaking Toy Story from Pixar franchise, an entirely new generation of admirers arrived at recognize him from his animation work movies, in which his characteristic cynicism was portrayed in the character with perfection. Additionally, carried on touring far into his 80s, playing in Atlantic and Las Vegas, as well as in the U.S., attracting crowds that loved him in a reservedly traditional manner of humor. In contrast to many of his period, Rickles never altered his behavior to accommodate contemporary sensibilities. Rather, he believed his audiences comprehended his love was the source of his humor instead of malice. On the 14th of March 1965, Barbara Ruckler was married to Don Rickles, Philadelphia, a partnership that would demonstrate must be among the most durable and characteristics of his private life. Rickles, who had established himself as the poison merchant on stage and no holds barred, just television for his biting humorous taunts, which frequently exposed a lot. There is a softer side to Barbara. Several of his friends saw their marriage co-workers as a stabilizing influence, establishing him in a society where celebrity ego and professional demands frequently cause connections, had freely acknowledged that discovery for him, love had not been simple. In his despite being a rising star. In their 20s and 30s she had trouble in the comedy scene. In a romantic sense, his keen sense of humor and sardonic edge that viewers loved, frequently worked against him in private environments, leaving possible mates either unimpressed or intimidated by when he first encountered Barbara. He was already 38 years old, single. Friends with Hart started to question if he would never get married. They met through his agency an opportunity and tract that would alter through Rick's life. Paradoxically, Rickles said that the reason he was drawn to Barbara was her weakness, or maybe refusal to find his remarks funny. In contrast to the numerous people who hung on his she was unimpressed with every wise, cracked out with his sense of humor, and this surprising his remark enthralled him. Regarding Rickles, Barbara's peaceful demeanor and groundedness strength contrasted sharply with the show business's shallowness, making she is the ideal companion for a man whose otherwise life was controlled by the entertainment pandemonium. 2 children were born to the couple, Larry and Mindy, who each carved out an area of their own in the universe of famous men, though in various forms. Mindy Rickles went into acting after following in her father's footsteps before Lens, but with her own unique route and fashion. Larry discovered his purpose behind the scenes in the role of producer. Unfortunately, when Larry passed away, his life was abruptly ended, of pneumonia when he was 41 years old. A terrible loss for the family of Rickles. Barbara and Don, who had always been devoted parents, were profoundly disturbed by his demise. For a man who has dedicated his life to creating others, chuckle at the sorrow of losing a son that remains among Rick's most significant triumphs, a reminder of the brittleness of life even in the midst of success and celebrity. In spite of the catastrophes, the delights of family life continued to be essential to the heart of Rickles. In his autobiography, he revealed that Ethan, his grandchildren, and Harrison Mann provided him with a new and surprising viewpoint on his work. Adults appreciated his decades-long collection, his innumerable late-night appearances, as well as his revolutionary years. Grandchildren's impact on comedy were much more impressed by something much easier. He provided the voice of Mr. Dot in the movie Toy Story. Potato Head Zorries. In their eyes, their grandfather, the renowned insult comedian, wasn't the one who had fought against Frank Sinatra or amused presidents. He was their cherished toy from among the most famous cartoon movies from their youth. Rickles found this amusing and joyful generational divide, frequently making jokes that all his years of dedication to the comedy industry were reversed by a plastic potato that talks. His wife of more than 50 years, Barbara, was by his side the entire time. Their marriage experienced the peaks and valleys of Hollywood life, the difficulties of the challenges of personal life and parenting that accompany extended careers in the spotlight. The couple's friends frequently comment on the sincere love and mutual respect that characterized their partnership, a collaboration based on humor, loyalty and affection. When Barbara died, she died from on March 14, 2021, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, 56 years to the day following their wedding. It was a bittersweet experience. Lyrical conclusion to their adventure together. The date's symmetry highlighted the strength of their relationship, as though even in death their tales continued to be entwined. Regarding Don Rickles, the self-described venom dealer, there weren't many individuals in the entertainment sector in which he acted. Generally speaking, his severe razor-sharp jabs and slurs were given with a smile and a wink, designed to disarm and amuse instead of as opposed to wound. Nevertheless, many who know him say one performer appeared to cause something more profound and more intimate with Rickles than his typical brand of offense comedy ever proposed. Denzel Washington. Rickles had been ribbing for decades, everyone from Ronald to Frank Sinatra according to reports. Reagan discovered Washington not simply hard to get along with, but a man whose existence annoyed him in ways that no other celebrity ever succeeded. The origin of Rickles disliked Washington and went transcend straightforward conflicts of personality. Rickles flourished in spaces where people laughed freely, where witty banter and for him to tear, bringing people down and then putting them back up with mutual giggling. Washington exhibited a degree of voiced earnestness and ferocity that Rickles discovered it nearly impenetrable. In contrast to numerous other celebrities who chuckled in agreement with Rickles' taunts. But regardless of how slicing Washington was known for his stoicism, he rarely providing Rickles with the fulfillment of agrin. Rickles, who was devoted to their response as significant as the joke itself. The expressionless stillness in Washington felt as the final denial of his humorous manner. That didn't help. In Hollywood, Washington's reputation wasn't that commands power, respect, and gravity. He was regarded as an actor who enhanced each part he performed, a performer who possessed the aura of self-respect and order. Rickles, in comparison, was a chaotic creature, or humorist who enjoyed causing trouble, humiliation, and uneasiness. The conflict between their respective fashions and their public figures produced a water and oil dynamic. Rickles, who often could location method to entice or mock even theater-fest individuals, just couldn't reach Washington, and ignored at more than he ever acknowledged. Over time, Rickles frequently hid his annoyances with comedy. However, insiders pointed out that any time the name Washington appeared in Rickles' tone changed in the conversation. Rather than the light-hearted poison he kept for his pals in Hollywood, his voice was rough and contemptuous, edge that wasn't typical, even for him. You know who doesn't laugh. According to rumors, Rickles said in private, "The dude wouldn't, Denzel Washington chuckle if you gave him money. He creates Mount Rushmore appears to be moving for Archimorist whose whole career was based on entertaining others in the most improbably." Likewise, the impenetrability of Washington's symbolized more than simply a personal irritation but a professional insult. In certain respects, Rickles' hostility toward Washington disclosed as much as Rickles as it went around Washington. Comedy. To Rickles was a method of communication, a means of disengaging, tearing down obstacles and removing potenting. When someone opposed his strategy, it wasn't just a denial of his quips, it was as though someone had rejected me, of him. Therefore, even though Rickles could dismiss innumerable trolls, detractors, possibly displeased others during his lengthy career, he was unable to dismiss Washington's unwillingness to comply. This silent conflict, Rickles' constant desire to make people laugh, and Washington's similar resolve to preserve his honor, it made a special tension that caused Rickles to get irritable whenever Washington's name was mentioned. Consequently, even if Don Rickles roasted celebrities, presidents, and companions with same zeal, there was something unique about the manner Denzel Washington was looked at. Regarding Rickles, Washington stood for the single mountain, the only audience he could ever reach. He was never able to crack the member. Additionally, for individual who had devoted his life to that one failure stood out, laughing, sharper than any of his victories. As of April 6, 2017, the amusement one of the world's most cherished and important people when Don Rickles died at his Century City residence, Los Angeles at 90 years old. His demise was ascribed to renal failure, which illness that had subtly made him weaker throughout his last days, but did not overwhelm the energy and witty humor thought has characterized him for a lot after Cage. Rickles was long-lived life, one that covered the whole American comedy era, and his passage signified the end of a stage of life when witty, without a hint of humor, was supplied with an individual touch that could amuse viewers while still having a sense of inclusion. In the humor, the tributes flooded in at the moment of his passing, from all areas of the entertainment sector, with actors, comedians, filmmakers, and admirers expressing gratitude for his revolutionary career, and their grief mourning the passing of a man who had served as a pioneer and many people's friend. Rickles had spent his last years with his family by his side and the conveniences of his Century City home, a Los Angeles neighborhood where he had lived for many years. Renowned for its grace and closeness to Century City, in the center of Hollywood, was an appropriate location for Rickles to call home, since it demonstrated both his height and in the entertainment the sector and his enduring relationship with the city that had been essential to his work. However, he had significantly slowed down in his later life. Rickles continued to be active through television appearances, interviews, with vocal function, well into his 80s, demonstrating his passion for performing never really faded. Even in retirement, he was considered to be among the most enduring legends in comedy, and he never lost his keen sense of humor, even as his health became worse. After he passed away, Rickles was buried in Mount Sinai. Los Angeles' Memorial Park Cemetery is a burial site that is recognized as the last resting place of numerous powerful Hollywood celebrities and Jewish community. The graveyard, situated in the Hollywood Hills, is a peaceful memorial location where friends, family, and admirers are able to honor them. When Rickles was buried there, among other entertainment icons in industry, signifying his enduring contribution in the American cultural tapestry, for his friends, family, and many generations of his burial became more than just a site for his devotees of lamentation, but furthermore one of celebration, a location to pay tribute to the livers of a man whose personality and sense of humor a lasting impression on comedy and popular culture. Rickles' passing at age 90 years old also highlighted the extraordinary career longevity. Not many performers remained relevant for so much time, changing over decades, as although comedy changed, it always remained in keeping with his distinct voice. From their smoky clubs from the 1950s to the late film Las Vegas stages, and night talk, show sets and moving elements hecked up a presence that extended to audiences from several generations. His therefore passing was more than just a loss of one individual, but the conclusion of an era of entertainment history. A source word of his passing spread. Memorials emphasized his talent for relating to people, his unafraid comic style, as well as his function as a beloved friend and a family man. In the background,